You're investing in this EA right now. You're investing in learning how to become a better manager. You're investing all of this stuff. Think about what your days are like now. What are things that you don't think about anymore, right? Like you said,
So
paying
many.
the bills, the
Yeah.
finance, like your finance stuff is pretty much done. Like tracking your analytics, we've, been pretty good at anything like that. There's a lot of things that you think are very small, but anything that you just hand off to me, you stop thinking about, don't you, at this point?
It's so freeing. And that's the only way I'm able to do multiple businesses. There's no way I could keep it all in my brain. It just doesn't happen. I'm an expert multitasker, but at the end of the day, the balls get dropped. So you've
Yes.
got to have that extra lever to be like, hey, use this, delegate, delegate.
If you really want that quality candidate who's going to care about your business, you have to pay them like you care about your business and you care about them. That's just
Yeah,
how it is.
100%. And I think it goes back to you get what you pay for at the end of the day. All right, today I have someone super special who you guys don't even know is behind the scenes probably, but she is the one who has made this podcast so efficient and so successful. So I'm excited to bring on Rose today. Thanks for being here.
Hi, it's so funny being on this end of everything. I'm not used to it for sure.
Yeah, no, but it's great because I think what the point of this podcast is really to give context behind why everyone needs a hire, at least one person to start with. And you've been that person for me over the last year. We made it a year already together, which is crazy. Time flies.
Yeah.
And so I really just want to break down some of those myths and misconceptions and like especially the mindset of why it's so hard to make your first hire. But once you do, what potential that unlocks afterwards. So just to like kind of clear the plate, start us over, give us your context of who you are and kind of how you got to this role. Like what's your past?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Silicon Valley, so grew up in the tech world. Both of my parents are engineers, so that's where I also started my career. My first job was like essentially front of house and facilities in a tech office, and I was there from when we were about 100 people. I think I was a 123rd hire for that office specifically. And then I was there for the first office move in that first week. And then we grew it into a 400 to 500 person office amongst two buildings. It was crazy. After that, I went on to become my first true EA role after that. And I supported the CEO office, the CTO, and the head of sales, which was a lot across many, many time zones, worked that all remotely. So from there, I came to Hawaii, and then tech being volatile as it is, got laid off. And then actually, one of my coworkers from that place told me about you, and you were hiring, and it just totally worked out. We were in the same place. It was the right time, almost felt like divine timing. So
Yeah, for sure. And the fact that you're like in the neighborhood that we lived in was so crazy. So
yeah,
fast forward,
totally.
like I had hired a headhunter through LinkedIn. Whoops. And they went through like, gosh, I don't even know, over 1,000 applications, narrowed it
Wow.
down to 50. And then out of 50, I narrowed it down to 20 that I wanted to interview. And out of the 20, we made it to like 5-second interviews. And you were one of those people. And it was just the fact that you like knew Hawaii was super important, first of all, because a lot of people can't even pronunciate things correctly. So you did
Hmm.
hula, you actually know more Hawaiian than I do, I think, which is also like divine timing and everything. But it was your background that really impressed me because previous to this, I think I was very used to thinking that I can just hire the cheapest person or hire the person that has the most time, which isn't necessarily good qualities to look for in a good professional EA. And so I think a lot of women, especially, will think, well, I can just hire my friend or I'll just hire my sister or whatever, thinking that we're helping everybody out. Right. But in the
Hmm.
end, it's going to kick you in the ass because you want someone that's almost more proficient than you are as the entrepreneur. Like you are a Excel ninja, you're a calendar whiz. Like you're so good on the tech stuff that I'm like, just let it fly, girl. Like you got this. So anything when it comes to booking travel and whatever, like you are so much faster and think of more things than I ever would. So I gotta say that pays itself off a million times. But if someone's like never hired anyone yet and they know that that's the thing holding them back in their business or their quality of life, what advice do you have for someone that's in that position?
I think definitely looking for somebody who has pursued admin as a professional thing. It really is a big difference when you're supporting like higher level executives, or if you're used to supporting a team, you just learn so many different things. So in my case, supporting those executives like really lend itself towards what you need, because I am used to these extremely busy calendars across so many different time zones. Because, this one exec was sitting in California, one was sitting in London, one was sitting in New York. So like constantly like booking things across time zones is really not that much of a problem for me at this point. So if that's the kind of thing you need to look for admin who are in those spaces. And more than that, too, if you are finding somebody who's been an admin for a long time, they're going to come with probably that customer support face. A lot of us probably started in retail because we need to have those be able to build that rapport amongst people. And so the other thing is too, you have to be finding somebody who's willing to continue to pursue things, right, and follow through on everything. So what we always like to call ourselves was chief annoying officer. So we would still be part of like that C-suite world. And that's kind of what it is, because sometimes people are just forgetful. So if you can follow through on all of your threads and make sure it gets done, that is sometimes even more valuable than somebody who can fully manage a calendar as well.
Yeah, and that's such a good point because as you're saying that, like I'm reminded, as an entrepreneur, usually you're the visionary, you have the million ideas, but then you're also like scatterbrained and gnat brained sometimes where you forget about everything. So we like to delegate it off and like say, okay, these are all the ideas I have, but then no one's actually going back full circle and saying, remember, you told me all these things you wanted to do, and like this is the follow up. I've been checking back 3 times instead of it just falling off the plate and being like, oh, well, I guess that didn't work out. Like you're actually on top of it. And that's another good reminder is like if you're hiring the sister or the friend to be your assistant, then it's on you to kind of babysit them. And that's not the whole point of hiring someone. It's to get stuff off your plate, not to add more to your plate. And I think
Mhm.
that's a big mental block that people have when they hire is, well, now I have to babysit someone. Well, actually, you shouldn't. Like your EA should be more independent than you, and they should be almost micromanaging yourself in a way, of all the things that we've delegated off. And they should be reporting to you saying, hey, these are the things we asked for. This is the follow up on this thing. This is the status on this, XYZ. They should be more organized than you, which is hard to believe that exists, but you have proven that it is. And I know that there's a whole breed of you out there that do this. And again, you're coming with a toolkit of experience. This isn't your
Yeah.
first gig ever. This isn't your
I think that's actually something you and I have done recently. I'm like, hey, I need this thing from you. And you're like, okay, I'm on it. I'm like, I need this thing from you. You're like, oh, here it is. you
yep.
know?
Because right now it's summer season, so I'm hardly in front of the computer. Like I'm doing
Yeah.
business from the phone right now. And so you've been so good. And there is a graceful and professional way to be annoying without feeling like you are a
Yes.
drag or like you're annoying or whatever. Like I just feel like that is a skill set that you have mastered so good. But
Thank you.
it's something people can learn. It is an actual skill, a muscle that you have to learn over time.
And truthfully, when I think about EAs and whenever I have folks ask me what it's like to be an EA, or if they're thinking about changing their career path, like I know some people in TA, so like talent acquisition sometimes transitions into EA. They ask me the same thing, and you just brought it up. It's the EA does manage the exec. You really are that person who is kind of the boss's boss. That's really how it works, because, if you don't come through me, you don't get on the calendar, you don't meet with the exec. That's just how it is, because that's the whole point of having somebody who's willing to protect your time, knows your boundaries, knows what your day-to-day looks like. And that's exactly where, the skill set comes in, as you said.
Absolutely. And I will say, like, so going back to the very beginning when we started working together, you were not very familiar with real estate. And so we were both kind of like, okay, let's just bite the bullet and see what happens. Like, you're going to learn so much. But kind of share from your perspective how that was transitioning into a new industry for someone who maybe like another realtor might be listening to this thinking, okay, I'm going to hire an exec, but they don't have real estate experience. Is that necessary? Like, what was your process like?
Now, I mean, it definitely makes you more comfortable, right? Because that feels like one fewer thing you have to teach this person. But I think what you and I have discovered for sure is like all skills are translatable. And you say that for entrepreneurs all the time. Like it doesn't matter what skill set you have, you can translate it to whatever you want to do. And especially in this case, even if, like I still feel like there are real estate terms I'm learning, or, things in the timeline that I'm learning. But if I can take what I know and apply it directly to what you need, I don't need necessarily that real estate experience off the bat, because if that's something that we're both willing to work on and we communicate about how important it is for me to learn that, or how important it is for your admin to learn that, you progress in that.
Yeah,
but I can still do my job, right? I can still do everything I need you to do. Like maybe I'll be asking questions or like needing to know certain things, but most of the time, it just comes to how comfortable are you working in the unknown, which most EAs should be, because that's kind of your life. You're sitting there in this puddle of like question marks, and you have to turn them into like periods and like bullet points and stuff. And plenty of times where you know, I don't know what exactly like you might need with a client, especially early on. Nowadays, not as bad. I can still set up that call. I can still reach out to them and say, "Hey, Marina, would love to connect with you," or I can say, "Thank you for like joining this call," or anything like that. I don't necessarily need to know all the details right away, but the second I do, that just makes it that much faster when you need it done.
exactly. Yeah. Hey, ladies, real quick, if you are looking for a mentor, I just wanted to remind you that I offer mentorship to entrepreneurs. So if you're someone who has a never ending to do list and you're spiraling out of control and feel like your business doesn't have a track plan, I want to work with you every single week for a month at a time. It's super simple, but I come from over 10 years of experience doing this myself, and now I'm willing to give that information back to people. So I've mentored real estate agents, I've mentored wedding photographers, I've mentored other business owners, and they've come from a place of overwhelm mostly, and they really just needed clarity and a couple of action steps to move the needle, and we've seen gigantic leaps and bounds in their business, like I can't even tell you. So if you're interested and you want to know what that looks like, I want you to go to marinatolentino.com, and there's a Calendly link there to do a 15-minute discovery call with me just to see if we're a good vibe check, to make sure we're on the same page, and I would love to work with you one-on-one to really boost your business to the next level. Let's dive back in. And I think just for context too of like, what is your roles and responsibilities? How are you helping in the position today? You're not a transaction coordinator. Let's just like draw the line there. We hire that separately for someone who does that full time. She handles, 15 to 20 cases at a time, or I should say transactions. And your job is specifically to be the interim between me and her, and to also keep tabs on all things. But most of your job is also just my calendar management. It's you're paying the bills for me, so I don't have to take that extra 5 minutes here and there and around. You're tracking things for me. But a big part has focused into marketing as of late, just because we've added on the podcast and the YouTube and all the things. And so I've started to decide, well, maybe this is now a new position. Maybe we're growing to a point that we can actually add on a marketing coordinator or a marketing whatever position on the side, so that you can stick to your sweet spot, which is making the engine run efficiently. Everything's
Mm-hmm.
proactive, we're not acting reactively, but kind of share like your day-to-day routine and like some of your weekly tasks that you do.
Yeah, so the first thing that I do, I tend to do it Sunday night. Once in a while, I'll do it on Fridays if I'm really ahead of schedule. But sometimes things happen over the weekend anyway that I need to add. But that first thing that I do every week is our one-on-one doc. That is like my holy grail. I need to do that every single week so that I know what we're doing, what we're talking about every Monday. And I highly recommend for any admin out there who does not have a running one-on-one doc with their exec, like that is a thing you need to live and breathe by, because that'll be the place where you get to ask your questions. You'll definitely get everything you need done right away. Something you and I don't do as frequently is like in the doc, I would like at mention and be like, "Hey, I need an answer to this, but it doesn't need to be now. I just need to hear at some point," right?
Yeah.
So there's like many, many ways to use that doc. So that is the first thing I do. And then I'm constantly like in my inbox, then I'll check your inbox, and then the podcast one, because we have email all over the place now. But it also helps me keep everything organized. So I kind of like having separate inboxes like that. So go through emails. We check, make sure everything is scheduled for the week. So that is podcast is up and ready. Podcast is scheduled for video. We know what we're posting this Friday for YouTube, and both of our emails are getting ready to go. So after this, like I'll have the draft for you for podcast email tomorrow. And then from there, it just kind of depends on like what we have going on. Like you mentioned in a previous episode, there's been times where you're bored, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes if I have everything scheduled out, I'm like, oh, I can relax. I've never experienced this in tech before. Like this is brand new to me. I don't know what it's like to not be stressed out.
Yeah.
So it really is just day to day making sure like I'm trying to respond to you in a very timely manner. And especially if clients ever get back to me, it's like that is pretty much instant, right? And then I get that right to you if that's something you need to answer. So the days really are different, which I think we're all used to. We're used to every day being different.
Mm-hmm.
But it really is just staying on top of, all the things that we know that needs to happen every single week, and then picking up on things that get thrown on us throughout the week.
Yeah, exactly. So as long as like our systems are in place, that everything has a process, then we know, okay, I just plugged in these things, check box, that's done, move on to the next. And then there's always like a backflow of items that are like do when you can. And
Mm-hmm.
so for us, that's like blogging right now or adding things to the
Mm-hmm.
website over time. But it's not to say like you're worked to the bone and you're absolutely maxing out 25 hours a week every week. It's definitely flexible. And I think that's nice because then you can have a life. And I also think some EAs have multiple entrepreneurs they work for. So if you wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do that, you could potentially share your EA with two or three other entrepreneurs if they had that capacity. But I like the idea of keeping it open too because there's room to grow. And so
Yeah.
it's not to say like we have to fill all these hours, but if you want them, they're there for you to work them if you need.
Mm-hmm.
And then just
And I
going back
think
to the,
especially for you and I, like with your multiple businesses too, like that makes it a little bit easier to like, oh, I would love to take on more stuff. Hey, easy enough because you're working on 10,000 things anyway.
Yep, exactly. And so I'm just thinking about like workflow, right? So for someone who's never hired someone before, like for example, a new client drops into the atmosphere and they're saying, hey, I want to work with Marina. So then I literally screenshot that. I don't even have to text it out to Slack.
Mhm.
Rose gets the information, sets up the initial consultation. From there, I get that going. And then I really don't have to do a ton until we're like showing. Once it's an escrow, I'm pretty hands off and I'm just there to negotiate. But my TC and Rose handles the whole file. And so I think for someone who's doing it all right now, they don't even understand that that world exists. That you can basically go from
Yeah.
initial contact to closing with us about like I would say 10 conversations with the client. Like that is it
And
to a
it
paycheck,
just,
which is
what a
crazy.
peace of mind, right? Peace of mind for
Yeah.
you that you know it's being handled because you're like, okay, here's the information. And like at this point, right, we've worked together about a year. So like I understand real
Mhm.
estate a lot more than I used to. If you tell me this person needs MLS or this person needs that, like I can go do that. Like you really
Yep.
don't even have to tell me most of the time. You're just like, oh, follow up with this person, right? And like
Mhm.
I just know what to do now. And that's from working together. That's
Yeah,
from trusting your admin. That's from letting
exactly.
go a little bit.
Yeah. And I will say one of the things that people need to look for in an EA is someone who is a self starter and a self researcher. So I feel like you've always done a really good job of trying to find the answer first before you ask the question. Whereas I've worked with some other people where they literally need to be handheld and like, remember, I
Yeah.
told you this is where the file lives. Like, go there first before you ask me. But that is a skill
Yes.
set you have mastered and something that's really important in people. And I would say if you're looking to hire someone again, give it a 3 month trial or even a 1 month trial, and you're going to feel it out really fast if this person has what it takes. And if they don't, you have to have the balls to just say, I'm sorry, this isn't working out and move on to the next. But so
Hmm.
often, I think, especially when they hire the friend or the sister, that they don't want to hurt
Yeah.
feelings. And so then it drags out 6 months to a year. And you guys are both freaking miserable and everyone is hating life. And I see this happen all the time. And so you got to treat your business like a business. And that
Yes.
means having the tough conversations and being confrontational at times, but really not settling for less. And I think
Yep.
when you said, like, you're the one that organizes the entrepreneur, you're almost the boss of the boss.
Yep.
You have to have that self respect as an entrepreneur to realize I have this role only. This is my role. And like hold yourself to that standard, this high standard. I deserve someone with a resume that stacks up above the rest. I deserve someone that has all this experience I don't have. I shouldn't settle for the cheapest, fastest person. Like, just don't do it.
No,
Yeah.
definitely not. And like you said about like hiring like the family member or the friend too, it's almost too emotional. Because you
Mm-hmm.
and I, like, I feel like you and I at this point are friends, but it was better that we didn't start out that way, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's easier to define those roles. And then we both know how we speak to each other, right? We know how we talk. So we definitely always assume good intent, but I'm not like worried about hurting your feelings. And I know you're not worried about hurting my feelings because this is how we work together.
Yes.
And then you don't have to deal with that part at all, which can be really challenging because,
Mhm.
like you want to remain, on good terms.
Yeah.
And it can be easy to become on not good terms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a big part of this too is setting yourself up for success with the way that you communicate to your EA, and just being really clear about what's acceptable, what's not, and when it's not, that we're having this good constructive criticism conversation to say, actually, I'd like it this way instead of just like
Mhm.
putting it under the table, building resentment, like all these things.
Yes.
You have to learn to be a good manager, first of all, and that takes time and practice too. So Even if it's your
Mhm.
first hire, realize you're not going to be the perfect boss. It takes time to work together. And it might take two,
Yeah.
3 EAs before you actually hit the sweet spot and some time. And I feel like so many women just don't even want to go there because of all the fear and the worry and all these things. You got to start somewhere. Like you really just got to
You
start.
do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, before you can become good at anything, you've got to fail a few times, right? That's the only way to get there. And this is
Mm-hmm.
exactly the same thing. And like, even if, you don't see eye to eye, like, I think especially like in any, like service-based business, like you're gonna have a nice way to tell somebody that I don't think this is working, right? Like it doesn't have to be mean. It can be it just didn't work out.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yep. And it's going to be emotional or whatever, but you just keep that professional face on and then you cry after you hang up the Zoom call. Like, I've been there. It sucks,
Yeah,
It's so true.
totally.
And you just got to get on to the next one. Like keep the momentum, knowing that you
Yes.
have this ideal vision of how your business works in your life and you're not willing to sacrifice anything else until you get there. So that's really
Yeah,
important.
and I mean, if really too, if you think about, buying back your time in the future, right? Like you're investing in this EA right now, you're investing in learning how to become a better manager, you're investing all of this stuff. But I mean, like think about what your days are like now. What are things that you don't think about anymore, right? Like you
I think
said,
so
paying
many.
the bills,
Yeah.
the finance, like your finance stuff is pretty much done. Like tracking your analytics, we've, been pretty good at anything like that. There's a lot of things that you think are very small, but anything that you just hand off to me, you stop thinking about, don't you, at this point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's kind of great.
It's so freeing. And that's the only way I'm able to do multiple businesses. There's no way I could keep it all in my brain. It just doesn't happen. I'm an expert multitasker, but at the end of the day, the balls get dropped. So you've
Yes,
got to have that extra lever to be like, hey, use this, delegate. And I promise once
exactly.
you start doing it, you realize it's like a whole can is open and you're like, oh my gosh, I can tell them to do this and I can ask them to do this. And like before you know it, you're going to be bored and you're like, wait, what do I do with my time now? And that's where your sweet spot is. Your job as an entrepreneur is to do the income generating tasks, which I think people forget. And they get so busy with the busy that they totally sidetrack from what actually drives the business, which for me is content creation. It's creating
Mhm.
relevant content that brings the audience in. It's having those authentic relationships, going to lunches with people. That's not stuff that Rose can do, right? But it's stuff that I can master and convert a client. So super important. I'm sorry to interrupt, and I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Work Like a Mother podcast. Real quick, I just want to remind you guys, if you are worried about missing an episode, you don't have to worry anymore because we are creating a weekly email that's going to go out automatically every single time there's a brand new episode. And this email is going to have everything you need to know about this week's featured guest. It's going to have all of the links and the resources that we're going to talk about in this episode. So you don't have to go around and fumble through the show notes, but it's going to be served in your inbox every single week. So if you guys want that access, be sure to click below one time in the show notes today, sign up for that email, and then you'll never have to worry about it in the future. And bonus, if you really love this, we'd love it if you share this with a friend. Give us a review on whatever platform you're listening to, and we'll continue to bring new episodes and new information that's going to help you level up your life every single week. And then I wanted to bring some perspective to pay. So we're going to talk about money for a second. What do you feel like? Because it's 2024, and I feel like so many women think they can pay $15 an hour still. And maybe in certain markets, but like we know cost of life and everything is just more expensive. 2024, what would you say is a good starting pay for someone?
I mean, it's always going to come back to what the experience is, right? But
Mhm.
basically, if you're below 30, 40-ish dollars an hour, you're not going to find somebody who has the skill set that you want, or maybe they do, but they're going to spend less time on you, right?
Mhm.
Because they can only offer you so much. And it's the same
Yeah.
thing anyone else would do, right? Like, well, if
Right.
you're paying me this amount, but I like you, I will do this for you, but I'm not spending more than like 6% of my energy on it, 5% or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So if you really want that quality candidate who's going to care about your business, you have to pay them like you care about your business and you care about them. That's just
Yeah,
how it is.
100%. And I think it goes back to you get what you pay for at the end of the day. So you can pay someone minimum wage, that's an entry level that's never had experience before, but it's going to take them
Mhm.
10 times longer and they're not going to have a system and a process. Whereas, like with you, 5 minutes, it's done. I know it's taken care of, it's being followed up on, and it's worth every peace of mind, like 1,000%. But it
Yeah.
does take risk in the beginning because you're going to think, oh my God, this is so expensive. I've never paid anyone this much in my life before. And then
Yeah.
once it clicks, like give it a month or two, it's just that unlocking of the next level. And then it's like, okay, it's go time. Now we've got no limits. We can handle 10 transactions a month easy. Like it's
Hmm.
everything's got a system. Yep,
Yes.
absolutely. Do you feel like we missed any other topics or like little nuggets you wanted to drop?
No, I feel like that was really the majority of it. It's just really understanding what your admin does for you, what the admin does for your business, and making sure you actually kind of treat them like your boss because they should be. If they're good at what they do, they will be your boss, and
Mhm.
that will free up your life because, if you're an entrepreneur for so long, you forget what it's like to work, in an office in a regular
Yeah.
job with like a hierarchy and all of that. But then, it's kind of great when somebody can tell you what to do for once.
Mhm. Oh my gosh, yes. I'm like, yes, put me in my place. Tell me what I need to do today.
Yeah.
It is. It really
It's
is.
like, we have all these things, and are you getting them to this week? Can we push it to next week? And then once I know that from you, it's like, oh, hey, Marina, by the way, there's a daily task on your calendar because this needs to get done, you
Mhm.
know?
And it
And
starts
even if
showing
it's
up every
something.
day.
Yep. And if that's something, that works for you, if that's something that you need, it's incredible how just having a single daily reminder somebody else put on your calendar will get you to do what you need to do.
1,000%. Yep. It's so good. So I think the big thing too is just start and realizing that it might take you, give yourself 3 to 4 weeks to find someone that's actually qualified enough. Cause I think that's another mistake people make is they interview 3 people and then just pick the most fun person. And instead of like looking at it critically and from a distance, like without just the feelings, like analytically, what does this resume tell me? What does their experience tell me? What's their follow up? Did they even follow up from an interview? All of those things play a role in it, but it takes patience and it is going to suck in the beginning. Like there is a learning curve, but it's going to go faster than you think. So if they pass the 30-day mark, then give them a 60-day mark. And by then you should be ready to cruise. If not, pull the plug and start over. And that's part of the process. So it is going to be delayed gratification, but it pays off 1000%. So I
Yeah.
just want to offer to people, like, if that's you and you're like, I need this, but I don't know where to start, or like, how do I even create the job tasks that they're going to be doing for me or build this job posting? We are more than happy to help do that. And we can do that through a mentorship call that I offer. So the Calendly link has that. We'll make sure it's in the description below. And I definitely want to just offer that out to you guys, just to have that sit down, get super clear on what you need for your business today. And then, kind of in 6 months, if this person could do all these things for you within 30 days, what can they do for you in 6 months? And you'll see the gigantic potential that you have in your business, which is super exciting. So, we end every episode with a rapid fire. And so, Miss Rose, what is your Starbucks order?
Oh my gosh, my Starbucks order lately, because I have been budget girly, is an iced doppio espresso in a venti cup with extra soy, which essentially is a broken down latte.
Oh, okay. I was like, that sounds very
But
fancy.
no, it comes out to like 364. And so that has been my budget girly drink
Wait, we're going
versus
to
a
have to
latte is
type
like
that out.
$7.
We're gonna have to
Yeah.
type that out in the description so that they can copy paste this order because that's a huge hack.
Yes,
Okay, what do you make
totally.
for dinner if it's last minute?
Last minute. So I always have, I don't know if you've seen the bulgogi mandu at Costco, that like giant bag. It's from Pipigo, which is like a really like popular Korean brand. I always have that in the freezer. So I'll make that either boiled or fried, eat them with noodles or rice or whatever, and just call it a day.
Yum. Okay, what's your favorite go-to department of Target and favorite designer if you have one?
I don't know if I have a favorite designer, but I am obsessed with stationery. So you'll catch me in the aisle with literally all the pens and different papers, and I'll just
Mhm.
like, what's new here?
I love it. That is a fun section, like the calendar stuff too.
It's just so
Um,
cute.
yeah. Okay, give us a book or a podcast you recommend to our audience and why.
Ooh, podcast. It's funny, I actually didn't think about this one, but it was something that I really liked when I was in university. And I think we've talked about before that you're not used to fiction podcasts. So this one is
Mhm.
called Welcome to Night Vale. It's just a very eerie kind of fake town where the author is a radio host and he like gives you the news and the weather of everything going on in the town. And you learn about the town through the radio show. And it's just like a little bit spooky, but very interesting. Probably my favorite podcast I ever listened to. Just I love that kind of storytelling in a different way that we're not used to anymore.
Absolutely. And that's such a good reminder that there's a whole genre of other podcasts out there besides self-help. Like, I don't know which woman needs to hear this, but like, I'm so into the self-help that I don't even look at the other side of the internet and it's out there.
Then you can just have fun with it too. It doesn't
Yeah.
always have to be, I'm going to become better. Or maybe you'll become better because you learned something in a story. I don't know.
Right? You'll get creative inspiration. Who knows?
Yes.
Absolutely. TikTok or Instagram?
Oh, tough one. I would say TikTok.
Okay. And where can people find you online if they want to stalk you and ask for help and all the things?
Yeah, mostly, I guess I would say on Instagram. TikTok, I'm like a scroller, but on Instagram, I am actually there. So it's at aloha underscore rose underscore because, everybody has the name Rose now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And your email is rose@marinatolentino.com. Again, if you want to
yes,
reach
it
out to Rose for
is.
any questions. And I would even say if you hire someone and you want some insight or like better training or whatever, Rose can absolutely give some systems and some of the apps that we use to run our business. That's a free
Definitely can.
platform. Yeah.
Yeah, happy to share any templates that I use, anything you need. I've got it for you.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was fun. And I really just want to like shake some ladies up and be like, just freaking ask for help because you need it.
You need it, you
all
need
need
it,
it.
and it'll change your life.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.